And welcome back to episode number 15. Today is a pretty exciting episode because this is a little bit more than just our standard marketing talk. We're actually going to talk a little bit more about some in depth information, specifically about advertising in the Google Ads side. Now, I know I like to speak pretty broadly about things. Obviously, I want to get it out there that this is not the one and only guide. Unfortunately, you're not going to make $1 million by my Demystifying Google Ads podcast episode, but I hope that I can provide some valuable insights to you. And I hope that you can get some learnings out of this if you're looking at running some Google Ads, if you're currently running Google Ads and need some optimization areas. So it's going to be a really great episode. Now, diving right in, there's a lot of talk about whether Google Ads is effective or not. And I think, obviously the real answer is it depends based on what your objectives are and how effective that's going to be from a broad perspective. Now, think about this. If you are a product or service and you are really leveraging in individuals coming to your store from, online ads by them seeing the product, and your product might be a commodity, your service might be a commodity, Facebook ads might be a little bit better based on the fact that you can get a little bit more virality, and you're not relying on someone searching for a specific product based on that. Additionally, if you have something that's a little bit newer to market, Google Ads might be a little bit tougher because if you don't have a specific product market fit, if individuals don't know what to search and there isn't very many relevant keywords or things like that of that nature that would be helpful, sometimes Google Ads does not fit that mold. But if you have a search-based intent for your product or service, and you know that there's someone out there searching for your product, Google Ads is an extremely powerful method of reaching your audience and advertising in a proper way. Now, think about Google Ads. We all know what it is. We've all heard about it, but how effective is it and what is it? How does it work? All these different questions that we have in our mind of how does it actually work? Now, breaking down Google Ads, it's essentially a bidding system. Now, obviously, you know that there's a lot of advertisers, both nationwide and locally, that are going to advertise on Google Ads. Now, the beautiful part about Google Ads is you don't have to be in a specific location to run those Google Ads. Obviously, you could be in Oklahoma and you could be running ads in New York. That's the beautiful part about an advertising agency is we're able to deploy ads anywhere for our clients at any time, which is pretty sweet. Now, if you think about Google Ads, it's a bidding system where you are telling Google exactly what searches your customers are searching, and it's going to try to optimize and deliver ads based on what you're telling it to those people in hopes that you get some conversion actions. Now, the incredible part about Google Ads is as it's morphed over the years and as it's continued to get better, with Google Analytics 4, with Universal Analytics, with conversion tags, with pixels, things like this, there are so many different ways to tell Google how to optimize your ad in a proper way without having to manually do it in a hourly fashion, which is quite nice. Now, there's a lot of different manual inputs that you can do and a lot of manual optimizations that you can do, which we'll discuss later in this episode, that obviously makes for a really great campaign. But the beautiful part is you can actually give it a conversion level campaign where you're optimizing for conversions. You put in your pixel code. They have some sort of tag that they add into the back end of your website, and they start monitoring conversions. And based on what you're telling it, it can actually monitor those conversions, which we'll talk about that later, but it's a pretty neat thing. Now, when it comes to setting up your first campaign, if you've never set up a Google Ads campaign or you're just thinking about setting up Google Ads campaign, there's a couple different things that you need to think about and know before you start. Because as you know, Google Ads are not targeted just towards advertising agencies. Google Ads actually has a pretty large business advertising towards small business owners, one-person marketing departments that might not know as much. And so there's a couple different things that can actually happen as you're advertising on Google Ads that can kind of lower your performance and give you kind of not good look on that side. Now, if you think about it, there are two different levels of campaigns when you start a Google Ads account that you have to choose right off the gate. And a lot of people, when they see these campaign types, they think that they're going to go with one and actually they should go with the other. Now, Google is going to give you the option of doing smart and expert campaigns. Now, when it comes to smart campaigns, obviously it sounds like, man, I want to use a smart campaign because it's smart and it's probably going to optimize better. But what Google doesn't tell you is their smart campaigns, they optimize for your search criteria and you give it some generalized information, but it's pretty basic on the ads that you can run. Now, there's actually an expert level where you can actually monitor what keywords are being put in, what locations, what headlines, what text, description text, things like that are being inputted. And so while you might think that smart might be the better option, if you could get your way around Google Ads, we'd highly recommend that you run expert level campaigns, because when we're reporting on smart campaigns, what's interesting is they really don't tell you how many keywords or what keywords are popular. They really just kind of give you an overall summary, which is slightly nice. But if you think about it, if you're trying to optimize and learn what keywords are actually driving conversions, where your cost per click is a little bit lower, it's really difficult to understand that when you're running smart campaigns, because you don't get that, keyword level information, which is really essential. Now, while you set up the campaign, obviously you want to select expert campaigns, which is a big thing. And then the other thing to think about is, as you're setting up your campaign, most people don't just go into Google Ads and set up a campaign. I mean, there's probably a good chunk of people that do that. But if you're looking at running Google Ads and being effective with what you do, you need to do some prep work and make sure that you put together a little bit of a strategy before you launch these Google Ads. Because as you know, there's a lot of keywords, there's a lot of ad copy out there that you need to optimize and make sure that it's resonating with your target audience. You need to make sure what is your overall goal and intent when it comes to conversions. What action do you want them to take? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to submit leads? There's so many different forms that you need to identify in your mind before you actually run a campaign. And so that kind of leads into, keyword research and selection. So as you're setting up your first campaign, or as you're optimizing your current campaign, one of the most important things of Google Ads is understanding how effective keyword research is and how to do the right keyword research when it comes to building out your Google Ads. Now, I attribute this to choosing the right approach for each hole on a golf course. Now, if you think about it, you're 80 yards out, you're thinking about hitting a pitching wedge, you're thinking about hitting a 60 degree. Do you hit a full 60 degree? Do you hit an 80% pitching wedge? Do you take a 3-iron and punch it onto the green? I mean, there's 10 different ways that you can get it on the green, and each way will probably get you on the green, but what's going to be the most effective? Now, when it comes to keyword research, there's a couple different metrics that we always recommend looking at as you're doing keyword research. The first one is going to be actual volume in your location. Now, there's a couple different tools that you can use for this. We always recommend using a tool like Ahrefs, where you're paying for it. You're getting more information that pulls in more relevant information from a broad perspective, not just from some keyword tool that told you that it was that it's free and that you can pull in some keywords. You always want to make sure that you're actually using reliable information. So we typically use Ahrefs, SEMrush, things like that. But what we recommend doing is start with one base keyword. So if you're an HVAC, start with literally HVAC in your location, or just literally HVAC replacement, HVAC repair. And then what you're going to do is, a lot of these tools allow you to find broad keywords, match terms, related terms, suggested terms, and you can start to build a list of what are people searching and what's going to be relevant to individuals that are searching, along with what has the volume that's going to drive the action to my ad. Now, there's some speculation what works and what doesn't, but you'll notice if you're in these keyword tools that some keywords will actually have a volume of, let's say, 1,000 searches per month. And then some have a search of 10, let's say. Well, if you're competing against 10 searches per month and you've got an oversaturated market like HVAC, where you have 30 different companies that are probably running CPC campaigns just in a very small market, that's a pretty small pool for those 10 searches. And so that's going to be a pretty competitive keyword. Your cost per click is probably going to be pretty high, and your chances of getting that person to convert are pretty low, most likely. So what you try to do is you're going to try to allocate certain keywords, certain budgets towards broad keywords that are going to be a little bit more generic and might lead to less conversions, but getting your awareness out there, maybe driving a cost per click, a little bit lower, while also focusing on relevant keywords that might cost a little bit more, but have a little bit less of a global volume. That's going to be a little bit more competitive. Now, as you're building out these keywords, it's really important to optimize as you're in the mid campaign as well. So if you're doing an expert campaign, there's actually a lot of things that you can do while you're in the middle of a campaign, where if you go to the keyword level data, you can actually see the click-through rate, cost per click, top impressions, things like that based on each keyword. And you can see which one's being a little bit more effective and which one's not. You can even see conversions, which is pretty sweet. Now, if you think about that, if we're a couple weeks into a campaign and you've got, let's say, $1,000 in ad spend on a low basis, where you've actually been able to see what keywords are performing. You might have one keyword A that has a 5% click-through rate, that has a 50-cent cost per click, and let's say you've gotten 500 clicks from that. And then if we were to compare keyword B that has a 3% click-through rate with a average cost per click of $2 with 35 clicks, we might want to optimize a little bit more into that keyword A, where we know that click-through rate is actually a little bit higher, our cost per click is a little bit lower, and we have a really good click-through rate based on those metrics. So it's always good to, as you're running campaigns, to optimize based on performance and see what's working and what's not. And as you add conversions, you can actually see based on certain keywords, maybe there's a correlation between HVAC replacement versus HVAC repair, and maybe your money is better spent in HVAC replacement versus HVAC repair, or vice versa. Now, obviously, there's a lot of tools and tips when it comes to effective keyword research, and we could probably spend an entire episode talking about this. But the big thing is making sure that you have effective volume, making sure that your cost per click is in a reasonable part. The other thing to consider is if you have a $30 per day ad budget and the average cost per click in your field is $15, you want to make sure that you get a little bit more creative, because with 2 clicks, you're not going to be as effective on your ads. And it's probably going to be pretty difficult to make a conversion or a sale. And so it's always important on your side to make sure that you measure and look, do your due diligence on the keyword research side. Now, when it comes to compelling ad copy, I think this is something that we sometimes overlook, and something that, is one of those things that I don't think there is a winning ad copy that will continue to live throughout the rest of the life. In my opinion, I think, when it comes to writing ad copy that converts, you need to make sure that you have clear, concise, and compelling messages. And you need to make sure that you're A/B testing ad copy, because sometimes what works for a month does not work the following month. And so, as we get into a more difficult economy, maybe you're going to message more around financing or better value, lower prices, things like that. Versus, let's say it's a really good economy, the economy is booming, cash is out a lot more than expected. Then it might be time to, leverage a little bit more into messaging around locally owned, top-notch customer service, things like that. So it's always important when you're writing copy, when you're building creatives, things like that you take into account more than what you think your customer is going to want, and think about from an outside perspective, what's happening in the world that my consumers are going to value, and how can I leverage more into that from an advertising standpoint. Now, when it comes to targeting and audience selection, there's a couple actually cool things that we've learned over the years that I think is really relevant and really important. And if you were to break down this entire episode, I think these are some of the keys that I think is really important. Now, one of the big things that Google advertisers sometimes struggle with is click fraud. As you know, there's click farms out there. You might, if you're running marketing for a company or if you're an agency, things like that, you're going to notice that you're going to get bot traffic from different countries where they jump on the page, they jump off, and somehow, some way you get caught, you get charged for that. We found a really good tool. There's a ton of tools out there, but we found a really good tool called ClickSeize. You actually install a pixel code on the back end of your website. It can, it works with Google Ads. And what it does is it actually monitors bot traffic and ensures that it cuts down on bot traffic to make sure that the clicks that you're getting are from legit people, which makes a big difference. We saw a really huge improvement. We implemented it for one of our clients a couple of years ago. And based on a campaign we're running versus when we implemented the click fraud detection software, we saved over 50% of our clicks were fraud. And so by implementing that, we actually implemented click fraud detection, saved over 50% of our clicks from being fraudulent. And then we actually gave, a lot more clicks towards a budget and had a much better CPC, which makes a big difference. Now, another big tip when it comes to targeting audience selection is actually when you're in the back end of Google Analytics, there are obviously inclusion and exclusion lists when it comes to territory. Let's say if you're advertising in the state of Alabama, you can actually go in and you can mass select, and there's actually these websites that have these lists of Google Ads exclusion lists. They can actually exclude all of the states, all of the countries except for the state of Alabama. Now, why is this relevant? Well, there's a lot of VPNs out there. There's a lot of individuals that can kind of skirt through the boundaries. And so if you could just add one extra step to your targeting to make sure that you're reaching the right people, it makes a big difference. Again, by implementing this, we've actually seen really great conversion rates from our clients. We've seen a lot less international. We've seen a lot less out-of-state traffic, which makes a big difference when you're dealing with budgets that might not be millions of dollars. Now, when it comes to monitoring and optimizing campaigns, I think there's a couple things to be said here that make a big difference from a well-optimized campaign versus a semi-decent campaign. Now, a lot of people go into Google Ads, they set it up, they get their campaign running, they do the research, and they think that they can just hit it and send it and be all good. Well, while that might be nice, and while you could probably do that and it'd be completely fine, if you think about it, that's probably not the best idea based on the amount that you're spending. Now, if you think about from a broad perspective, when you're regularly monitoring and tweaking these Google ads, you're actually going to see a lot more optimal performance based on the simple fact that as you're driving more relevant keywords to your business, you can actually add more keywords based on Google's recommendations, or you cannot take their recommendation and not add those keywords. What's really helpful is sometimes they will tell you based on your search intent, it would be really relevant to add keyword X or add in a broad keyword of X5. So when we come down to, optimizing these campaigns, it's really important to make sure that we're looking at the creatives, the content, the keywords, the locations, things like that. If we're doing zip plus 4, if we're doing zips, always ensuring where are the best conversions coming from. Why is that? And is there a need for us to leverage more into those areas that are getting better conversions? Or is it good for us to stay where we're at? And so while it might sound like it's an easy, fun little thing to just set a Google Ads running, let it run and don't touch it, at the end of the day, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you by logging in, optimizing the campaign. Even if you're doing just a little bit, I think a little bit is better than nothing at the end of the day. Now, some of the things that we've seen just from, pitfalls perspective, because I think, when you get into the advertising world, as you start running Google ads, I think it's really important for us to identify the common pitfalls because there's a lot out there. And I think it's really important for us to identify how we can avoid these pitfalls as business owners, as marketers, as we continue to drive more traffic through our Google ads campaigns. Now, one, there's a lot of advertisers out there that say that they have the secret formula for Google ads. They have the way to get more leads. They can promise leads for a certain amount. And while not all of these are bad, there's actually data that shows that most of these people do not have the metrics to support their claims. And most of them are running off of one campaign that they had to be successful, that they're actually leveraging and selling to you instead of, Siri just went off, instead of actually having long-term success off campaigns. Because if you think about it from an advertising perspective, if you had the secret formula for success, why would you sell that? Why would you not keep it and scale from one side? So when it comes to the golden ticket idea, you have the end all be all approach to Google advertising. I think it's one of those things that you avoid as a business owner, as a marketer, and you make sure that you can learn it on your end or hire the right individual to take care of those things to avoid having to worry about paying money for a course, paying money for a 7-step process, for some secrets of Google advertising. Most of those are not secrets. It's just pulled in content from what they've learned. Now, other pitfalls that you can avoid is, when it comes to Google ads, sometimes you can let them run too long and sometimes you can let them run too short and cut it off too quickly. Now, if we're looking at it from a cut off too quickly standpoint, one of the issues that we see when it comes to advertising on Google is an individual will get really excited about running a Google ads. It sounds fun. It sounds cool driving individuals from Google search to your website. If they're searching for our services and they're going to our website, they're obviously going to book, right? And so they run Google ads, let's say for 3 days, and they spend through some money and they don't get any conversions. A lot of people would actually look at that and say, we need to stop these Google ads. These are not successful. We need to change something. Something isn't working. But what we always suggest our clients to think about is as you're running campaigns, put at least a 1 to 2 week long, time frame in your mind mentally. These ads are going to run. We're going to get some good data and understand exactly what's driving people to click on the ads, where they're going on the website to see if they're actually converting, if there's something on our website that's pulling them away, and then make an executive decision on whether you want to continue running Google ads or if you want to stop from that side. Google ads is not something that you turn on and off whenever it gets busy or slow. While you can optimize and do it to some extent, it's always recommended that you continue running ads or you shut them off completely, just based on the fact that as you continue to turn them on and off, it's going to be harder for Google to identify how you can actually get more business, and it makes it a little bit harder for them to optimize based on certain keywords. Now, on the other side, I think there's something to be said about wasting spend on Google and ensuring that you cut it off at the right time. There's so many different services, specifically for our side of things, the website design side, where there are so many advertisers in the space that it almost feels like you're going to continue spending money with very little return. Now, if you have the right optimized campaign, and we've tested around, and we've found some really well optimized campaigns that we can run, sometimes it's one of those things that you run campaigns, you find the right keywords, you have the right landing page, you have the perfect creative, you have the perfect content, and it just doesn't stick. And after a month or two, it's one of those things that, you can obviously keep going, but we always recommend start thinking about, where is your cutoff time to where if you invest this money on Google and don't see a return, how long can you last without that affecting your business, both mentally or financially or any of those things? And when is a good time to kind of shut it off? Now, kind of diving into a real world example, there's a couple, there's a one company that really stands out from one case that we always like to stand out. Now, Wayfair is an American e-commerce company that sells home goods. Now, it's known for its vast selection of home furnishings and decor items, and it wanted to increase its online sales and expand its customer base. While it's already had a significant online presence, Wayfair was actually able to leverage Google Ads to drive more targeted traffic to its website and increase conversions. Now, the primary challenge for Wayfair was how do they stand out in a highly competitive online goods market? Because at the end of the day, there are so many advertisers out there, and they really needed to attract customers who are not only interested in home furnishings, but were also ready to make a purchase. Now, from our perspective and from our research, we actually saw 4 different things that Wayfair did from a Google Ad strategy. One was targeted keyword bidding. They focused on bidding for specific high intent keywords related to home furnishings and decor, and this included product specific terms and more general home improvement keywords. Second, they utilized Google Ad shopping ads, which they actually made extensive use of Google shopping ads, which allowed them to showcase their products directly in the Google search results. This feature also included high quality images, pricing, and product descriptions, which makes a big difference. Third, they did segmented campaigns. They actually created segmented campaigns targeting different audiences based on their browsing behavior, previous purchases, and search behavior, which this segmentation actually allowed for more personalized and effective ad placements. Now, the fourth thing that they actually did, which I think is really key, is they did A/B testing. Wayfair consistently tested different ad formats and copy to see which resonated with their target audience, which ultimately helped in redefining their ads for better performance. Now, what were the results that they saw? Obviously, they saw a significant increase in both traffic and conversions from their Google ad campaigns. The targeted approach actually allowed them to attract customers who are in the later stages of buying the circle, which resulted in higher conversion rates. And then ultimately, the use of Google Shopping ads helped Wayfair showcase its wide range of products effectively, directly increasing sales from these ads, which was huge. So, kind of concluding on that, Wayfair's use of Google Ads exemplifies how a well-planned and executed PPC campaign can lead to substantial growth in e-commerce sales. By focusing on targeted keywords, utilizing Google Shopping, segmenting their campaigns, and consistently optimizing their ads, Wayfair was able to effectively reach and convert their desired audience, which I think is so key. Now, we're getting to the end of the episode, so obviously we want to conclude and kind of give you some key takeaways from this episode. One of the first things that you need to do is make sure that when you're setting up Google Ads, that you do a expert level campaign, not a smart campaign. You need to make sure that you're actually implementing the correct demographics, correct targeting, and making sure that you're excluding locations that you're actually not wanting to target in. And third, you want to make sure that you A/B test and consistently think about how you can properly optimize your ads, which is going to make a big difference in the long run. Hope you enjoyed this episode about Google Ads. Hope we provided some value on this side. If you have questions, never hesitate to reach out. And as always, if you could leave us a review if you enjoyed this episode, it would be much appreciated. And please let us know about some future episodes that we could provide some value for you. Thanks.